Have you ever wondered how you would survive if you went back to the Middle Ages and lived from the Middle Ages to the present day, but never aged? The night air is damp, carrying wood smoke, sheep musk, and that indefinable just dug latrine note. Your eyelids flutter. You're flat on a straw mattress that feels like someone stuffed a porcupine into a potato sack. A rooster screeches from the rafters. It hasn't learned about snooze buttons. Somewhere in the fog, a church bell clangs, letting everyone know it's probably morning, or maybe a random saint's feast day. Either way, you might not survive this first hour if you keep breathing that smoke. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Drop your location and local time in the comments, because I bet the rooster is louder where you are. Now find a comfortable place to lie down, turn on a small fan, relax, and let's start our journey tonight. You sit up gingerly because medieval pillows are basically folded burlap and clock your surroundings. Wattle and daub walls ooze chill dampness. A single tallow candle, gutters making shadows dance like drunken puppets. Your host family is still asleep on the floor, father snoring like a creaky mill wheel. Mother curled round a toddler dog, curled round the mother, and Flea curled round everyone. Outside, a donkey brays, offended by nothing in particular. Step 1, footwear. You pat the rush-strewn floor for your boots and remember you arrived barefoot. Yesterday, you stumbled through some kind of cosmic wormhole and face-planted in a turnip patch. The turnip, by the way, is still in your pocket, a lumpy souvenir of time travel. You yank on borrowed cow leather shoes, each one lovingly shaped like a lopsided canoe, and push open the door. Mist hugs the village green. Thatch roofs drip. A flock of geese marches in single file, hissing like tiny demon lawyers. Somewhere, a woman dumps a chamber pot from an upstairs window. Liquid splashes the mud with impressive acoustics. You sidestep gracefully. You hope earning your first survival badge, avoided flying night soil. Congratulations. The year is 1215, though no one here owns a calendar. Word has spread that barons down south forced King John to sign a big parchment by the Thames, something about limiting royal power. Magna Carta, they're calling it. You overhear snippets. No freeman shall be fined evil large. Aye, but what's a freeman? Dunno, ask the priest. Authentic political commentary, 13th century edition. You shiver and hug your tunic. Wool coarse as a cat's tongue scratches your neck. The village blacksmith pounds iron nearby, clang, hiss, repeat, sending sparks that briefly outshine the sunrise. Every clang rattles your molars like you're inside a medieval EDM club. Light joke, one. At least there's no cover charge unless you count chronic tinnitus. Breakfast smells drift from the common bakehouse, barley gruel, with exactly 2 spices, hope and disappointment. You join the queue, bowl in hand. A baker eyes you, notes the suspicious smoothness of your face. 20-something forever is about to get awkward. You knew from over the hill, he asks. You nod, spooning gray porridge. Aye, farther than you think, you whisper. As you eat, a neighbor brags about his dental hygiene, crushed charcoal mixed with honey while rubbed on the gums once a fortnight. Weird fact number 1, medieval toothpaste, deliciously gritty, somewhat flammable. He flashes a black-stained grin. Light joke number 2, charcoal whitening strips the early edition. The village reeve strides up the green tally, stick in hand, shouting about today's corvée. Everyone owes a day of plowing the Lord's fields. You volunteer, better to blend in than to be the weirdo who has no age. The reeve squints. Historians still debate whether peasants worked fewer hours than folk nowadays. He mumbles, accidentally, dropping our mandatory academic debate phrase into casual conversation. Nice of him. You spend the morning wrestling an oak-handled plow behind 2 surprisingly judgmental oxen. Every step, mud sucks at your shoes like chocolate pudding with abandonment issues. The sun finally slices through haze, revealing a sky so crisp It looks HDR filtered. Sweat trickles. Your back aches, yet deep inside you feel strangely alive. Immortality's first perk, no long-term lumbar damage. While you rest at midday, children gather poking at your jeans, like stitching, time travel wardrobe. Malfunctions are real. You improvise. It's new Flemish style. They ooh. One girl braids a daisy chain and crowns you Sir Flowerhead. Light joke number 3, you've officially peaked, knighted by a 7-year-old with questionable botany skills. Afternoon brings church service. Inside the stone nave, incense mingles with the human bouquet of sweat wax and damp goat. The priest thunders about eternal souls and paying your tithe on time, Divine Venmo Medieval Edition. Choir boys chant in Latin, but half are mouthing fish stew recipes. You kneel, trying to remember if immortals need confession. Probably. After Vespers, villagers gossip under the linden tree. A mysterious monk claims relics of St. Agatha's toenail. Someone's so birthed a piglet with 2 snouts. And a traveler saw the king himself ride by cloak, blowing like a red sail. You throw in a helpful rumor. They say parchment prices will drop soon. Heads nod sagely. Economics nailed it. The sky dusks toward violet. You stroll past cottages, glowing amber from hearth fires, past the alehouse where laughter sloshes louder than the mead. Tempting, but you need a bed before curfew. Manorial law says gates shut at sunset. On the way, you notice elders gathering herbs beside the brook nettle sage and curiously ground up crocodile dung imported by crusaders as sunscreen. They swear it works. You file that away. Might make a great callback 3 centuries later when Victorians invent SPF. Back in the longhouse supper is pottage thickened with yesterday's leftover pottage. You sip slowly, savoring wild garlic's sting. A lad asks if the world ends at the edge of the sea. You smile, remembering satellite photos you once saw on a phone that hasn't been invented yet, and answer it bends like God's own crozier. He nods, satisfied and slightly confused. Night deepens. Someone stuffs straw against the door to keep wolves and worse tax collectors outside. As bodies settle, the communal snores begin their symphony, timpani-like rumbles punctuated by an occasional squeaky treble from Grandpa. You wrap yourself in a wool cloak, listening to rain tap the thatch. Each droplet sounds like a tiny drum, slow and hypnotic. Your thoughts wander 16 lifetimes. From now you'll scroll memes about Magna Carta on a smartwatch. You'll taste coffee sweeter than any mead. You'll watch humans that dance on the moon. But for tonight, immortality is just a promise you're not sure how to keep. The candle dims, casting amber halos that pulse with every draft. Sleep tugs at your eyelids, the way the reeve tugged oxen, persistent, unromantic, inevitable. You close your eyes, letting the straw's earthy scent meld with distant wood smoke. Heartbeat slows. Outside, the geese finally hush. Inside, someone mutters mid-dream about stolen turnips. You exhale. Whatever tomorrow brings plague politics or piglets with surplus snouts, you'll face it eternally. 25 chronically curious, occasionally sarcastic. And if the morning rooster tries that screech again, well, you might invent the first alarm clock off button using a loaf of stale rye. For now, rest. The grand human story tick-ticks onward, and you've worked yourself a front row seat that never expires. 13 winters slide past like wax off a warm candle, yet you still look 25. Lucky you. It's 1348, and the world smells different, sharper, like rain-soaked moss laced with terror. You've drifted south to the bustling market town of Winchester, trading odd jobs for lodging, always careful not to stay long enough for anyone to ask why you don't wrinkle. Tonight, though, the streets feel empty, as if every door has decided to hold its breath. A bell tolls in slow, sorrowful strokes, once for each soul carried out today. You tighten your hood and step aside as a cart rumbles past. 2 men in leather masks heave sacks onto the plank bed. A pale hand flops out wedding band, glinting in moonlight before disappearing under lime powder. Someone blesses himself, muttering, "God keep us." Light joke number 1. You consider suggesting a refund policy. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your plague back, but decide the timing is off. Back at the inn, patrons crowd away from the hearth, each wary of another's cough. Cards lie abandoned, dice gather dust. The barmaid pours ale with her sleeve over her mouth, muttering that garlic steeped in vinegar wards evil miasma. You order a bowl of the same potion and toss it back. It tastes like a tossed salad getting revenge, but you swallow anyway. Blending in is survival rule number 1. Across the table, a friar described as medically curious presses a toad against a merchant's neck, swearing the creature will suck out the poison vapors. Weird fact number 1, some households literally tied live chickens to their armpits for the same reason poultry as plague extraction devices. The merchant looks unimpressed. The chicken looks downright offended. Sleep eludes you. You lie on the rope-strung bed, staring at the rafters, counting heartbeats and distant screams. Beneath the mattress, you've stashed a tiny pouch of crushed dried oranges, citrus perfume to cut corpse stench if things get rough. Remember the crocodile poop sunscreen from last section? Compared to that, this scent is positively luxurious. Morning drags itself ashore, gray and cold. Through the shutters, you spot black-robed flagellants, whipping their backs raw, chanting hymns that slice the quiet. The town bailiff proclaims new ordinances. No more than 3 people may gather, and anyone sneezing must leave the market square. Historians still debate whether these measures slowed the plague or merely gave healthy folks more elbow room to panic. You volunteer at the infirmary run by Dominican sisters. The head nurse sizes you up. No beard, no wrinkles, then shrugs. Bodies need moving, and you have arms. The ward reeks of sweat camphor and hopelessness. You lift a boy no older than 12. His skin bubbled with the infamous god's tokens. He clutches your sleeve. "Will it hurt long?" he asks. You squeeze his hand, whisper a lie, and feel the universe bend under the weight of mortality you don't share. Outside, ravens perch on rooftops like dark punctuation marks, waiting to end every sentence. You fetch water from a well, passing a woman, waving burning rosemary sprigs, insisting the smoke cleans the humors. Light joke number 2. You wonder if rosemary smoked ham will become a culinary fad. Black Death, BBQ tastes like survival. Back at the infirmary, a young barber surgeon demonstrates lancing buboes with a red-hot knife. Steam hisses, the patient faints. The surgeon explains that heat drives out demon air, then asks if you'd like to cauterize the next one. You politely decline immortality, doesn't include immunity to spraying bodily fluids. Days blur. You roll bodies into trenches, scatter lime, recite brief prayers. Someone hums a lullaby meant for infants. The melody haunts the dusk. Your clothes stiffen with sweat and ashes. Each dusk you scrub your hands with vinegar and salt until they pinken like winter apples, but fear still clings under the nails. One afternoon, a rumor races faster than any cart. The disease comes from Jews poisoning wells. An angry mob forms torches in hand. You plant yourself in the alley, mouth heart-rattling like dice. Stop, you say, voice low but steady. With theatrical timing, thank you Renaissance improv classes, yet to be invented, you produce a rat caught earlier in a grain sack, fleas hopping like popcorn. These bite us not as well, you declare. The crowd recoils. A flea chooses that moment to leap onto the mayor's beard. Panic dissolves into awkward shuffling. You've accidentally delivered the germ theory half a millennium early, minus the germ part. Light joke number 3, congratulations. You're now the unofficial rat whisperer of Winchester, business cards pending. That night you dream of turning the town gate into a revolving door. Out go the sick and comes hope. But dawn breaks on more bells. The friar with the toad is now in the cart. You help lift him. His face is peaceful as though he finally answered his own medical curiosity. The toad, however, is nowhere to be found. Even in crisis commerce, limps on. A spice merchant sells plague-proof charms carved from rose quartz, claiming they glow near illness. You buy one for a laugh. It does not glow, but it does make a stylish zipper pull on a tunic with no zippers. By midsummer, sweet breezes replace the corpse stink. Grass sprouts over mass graves like green forgiveness. Survivors emerge squinting, half expecting the sun to bite. Wages triple, so few workers remain that labor feels like royalty. You join a mason's crew rebuilding an abandoned manor, chiseling limestone under skies so blue they look brand new. For a moment, you almost forget you're timeless. During a lunch break, the mason tells you how he lost 2 brothers but gained a field left vacant by death. Strange blessing, eh? He sighs. You nod. The word blessing tastes complicated when spoken by someone who will never bury their own siblings again because you'll outlive entire bloodlines. Autumn arrives. You stand on a ridge overlooking Winchester's rooftops, chimney smoke curling like cursive letters. Each puff writes a sentence in the story of endurance. You whisper goodbye to no one in particular, then step onto the Pilgrim Road, east staff in hand. The wind bites fresh. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Italian city-states hum, with commerce and plague doctors, sketch ideas for birdbeak masks, fashion icons in the making. A farmer, trudging next to you, complains about aching joints, asks your age. 25, you reply. He laughs, revealing 3 lonely teeth. That was my age when Edward was crowned Edward the Confessor, mind. He exaggerates. You grin, adjusting your pack. Inside sits a small notebook filled with dates and faces you must remember or risk losing them to centuries' haze. The first entry reads, Turnip Patch, 12:15, don't step twice. Dusk finds you at a roadside shrine where candles flicker before a wooden virgin darkened by rain. You kneel less from piety than from habit and thank whatever cosmic glitch granted you endless tomorrows. Yet your voice trembles. Immortality means watching every friendship become a funeral. You trade years for signatures in a ledger only you will read. As stars unfold, you curl beneath a yew tree. Night insects buzz, and somewhere a wolf howls, though it might just be a hungry hound. You pull your cloak tighter, recalling the barmaid's garlic brew and the toad-healing fiasco, tiny postcards from a plague year nobody will forget. Tomorrow, you'll walk on guided by the same moon peasants pray to and future astronauts visit with flags. Another chapter waits. Kings will rise. Printing presses will thrum, and somewhere not too far off, a genius will paint ceilings that make mortals crane their necks in awe. You close your eyes, letting the yew's resin scent mingle with earth. Sleep slides in softly, a sympathetic stranger. Your heart beats steady, unhurried. Time has plenty more to show you. Sun burns through a misty dawn as you join the ragtag procession, trudging toward Canterbury boots, clicking on frost-silvered ruts. A carved scallop shell dangles from your cloak pilgrim bling that says, "Please don't rob me. I'm already poor and holy." The year is 1380-something. Nobody is certain because the local monk in charge of dates keeps mixing Roman numerals with doodles of dragons. Still, everyone agrees on one thing. Thomas Becket's shrine is ahead, and its miracles allegedly include curing bunions and erasing bad romances. Take that, medieval Tinder. The road bustles with accents. Flemish cloth dealers haggling in whispers, an Italian friar humming madrigals, and a widow from York who swears she saw St. Margaret's face in her ale foam. You're walking beside a poet named Geoffrey Bookish, sharp-eyed, always jotting ribbled couplets on scraps of parchment. Light joke number 1, every time a donkey passes gas, he mutters rhymes with pilgrim close enough and adds it to his draft. He claims he'll weave everyone's tales into a single book. You nod, thinking good luck drawing royalties before copyright exists. 6 miles in the scent of violets gives way to something less floral. London's southern suburb appears its timber houses leaning like gossiping old men upper stories kissing over the lane. A maid opens a shutter and tips a chamber pot. You leap sideways. The contents hit your neighbor's cloak with a splash worthy of a royal fountain. He stares at the brown speckled fabric, sighs, and declares, "At least it's warm." Light joke number 2, free spa treatment exfoliation by Biohazard. You duck into the Tabard Inn at Southwark for lunch. The inn yard thumps with horses. Inside, smoke curls from a hearth where eel pies roast. The landlord, Harry Bailey, boasts he's devised a contest each pilgrim should tell stories on the journey winner gets a free supper. Geoffrey's quill twitches like a ferret. You consider telling the one about crocodile poop sunscreen callback, but decide to save it for a sleepy night on the road. After ale and bread trenchers, you stretch by the Thames. A barge drifts past, carrying barrels of wool and rumors. One rumor hits hard Wat Tyler's Peasants' Revolt just 2 summers ago nearly toppled young King Richard II. You recall Streets Aflame rebels storming the Tower Royal Advisors, losing heads, and you immortal infiltrator slipping through a side gate with someone else's cloak so you didn't lose yours. That friend was a day you were glad wrinkles aren't the only thing you dodge. The uprising is your legitimate historical event for today, neatly filed between terrifying and glad it's over. Evening sets the clouds ablaze. You march again, feet clapping wooden pattens to avoid ankle-deep muck. A jangling peddler sells cheap saints' badges and promises they repel lice. Weird fact number 1, some are made of pewter, mixed with lead so soft you could chew it like bubblegum. Don't. You pin St. Christopher to your hat anyway, fashion over physics. Nightfall sees the caravan camped in a meadow glazed with moonlight. A fiddler scrapes a tune, someone roasts hazelnuts. The widow from York recounts her 5 marriages with gusto. You notice Geoffrey scribbling every juicy detail. When she describes husband 3 dying of excessive vigor, Geoffrey's quill nearly snaps. You lean over and whisper, historians still debate whether she's exaggerating or auditioning for sainthood. He snorts so hard ale shoots from his nose. Light joke number 3 achieved. Sleep is impossible on damp ground, so you count constellations and blisters. Somewhere a lute plucks a lullaby. You remember the plague year's bells, Winchester's deserted streets, and how you held a rat to stop a pogrom. Memories blur centuries like wet ink, but you cling to them. They're postcards proving you were here, that the world changed and you watched. Day 2 dawns with frost-sparkled grass. You trudge beside Geoffrey and a pardoner hawking indulgences valid even for sins not yet imagined. He eyes you, smooth skin, bright gaze, and offers a bulk discount on eternal salvation. You reply, "I'm on the lifetime plan already," and keep walking. Outside Rochester, a wayside cross tilts burnt at the base. Villagers say lightning struck it thrice in one storm. They murmur that God is displeased with new taxes. You taste ash on the breeze and wonder if immortality includes seeing history, loot power, rebellion, reform, repeat. The pattern is as predictable as chamber pots at dawn. Mid-journey, the group pauses at an herbalist's cottage. She stirs a pot of pilgrim balm, goat fat moss, and mint fantastic for blisters. As she wraps your feet, she chats about lunar influences on bowels, then slips you a cookie made with imported cane sugar. It is revelatory sweetness without honey. You grin like someone who's glimpsed the vending machines of future airports. Approaching Canterbury, you cross fields where skylarks tumble in song. Cathedrals, twin towers crest the horizon, limestone glowing honey gold. Bells ring a welcome that vibrates your ribs. Inside the precincts, incense curls upward as pilgrims file past Becket's glittering shrine. Jewels flash by candlelight. Wax drips like tears. You kneel, not for miracle, but gratitude plague didn't get you. Revolt didn't aging, still hasn't. You whisper a promise to use your unending years for witness, not mere wandering. After devotions, Geoffrey gathers everyone in the inn yard to judge the tales. A Miller's Body story wins mostly because it involves flatulence choreography. Supper arrives roast capon leeks, a jug of wine, and you savor each bite knowing diets of future centuries will call this cheat day. Later, you slip outside cathedral windows, blazing jewel tones on wet cobbles. A chill breeze carries chants of night monks and distant laughter from ale houses. You inhale, tasting stone dust and candle smoke, a blend no modern diffuser can imitate. Footsteps echo. Jeffrey appears parchment in hand. Your turn, he says, eyes bright. So you tell the crocodile poop sunscreen anecdote, the rat whisperer moment, and the way you watched Winchester rise from plague graves. The group roars, groans, and wipes tears, some from laughter, some not. When you finish, Jeffrey taps his quill thoughtfully. Your tale feels bigger than one life, he says. You just smile and wish him good ink. He promises to change your name, but keep the oddities. You think, that's fine, posterity can handle a mystery or two. Before dawn, you shoulder your satchel. Pilgrimage accomplished, it's time to move again. Ahead lies Bruges with its wool markets. Then maybe Florence, where whispers say a genius kid named Leonardo will be born in a century or so. You grin, plotting routes like knots in invisible string across Europe. At the gate arch, a night watch yawns. He studies your face in torchlight. You look fresh as new parchment, he remarks. What's your secret? You wink. Good moisturizer, garlic and vinegar. Remember? He laughs, waves you on. Behind you, the city bells toll, prime daylight's first note. You step onto the open road, sun rising, boots squelching. Every breath carries meadow damp and horse sweat. Kids chasing geese wave as you pass. You wave back, cloak swirling like a story still being written. Somewhere far ahead, a printer's press is only decades away, ready to spin ink and revolution. But first, blisters to heal, lice to comb, and maybe another eel pie or two. The sky brightens into a palette. Turner will love centuries later. You hum Jeffrey's rude refrain, feel the scallop shell bounce on your chest, and think, if immortality is a book, you've barely filled page 3, and the margins are wide. Smoke from newly harvested rye drifts across the Rhine Valley, curling over half-timbered rooftops like a lazy cat. You arrive in the town of Wiesenfurt in the spring of 1484, just passing through. You tell the gatekeeper, though he eyes your road-worn boots, the way a banker eyes counterfeit coins. Inside the market square, you set up a tiny stall offering cups of mint nettle tea that supposedly calms stomachs ravaged by turnip stew. It sells well until Frau Gertrude Schneider downs a mug, belches with the fury of a brass trumpet, and announces that only sorcery could tame her digestion. By nightfall, news spreads faster than lice. At a jousting match, a handsome stranger brews potions, never ages, and probably talks to demons on weekends. The timing could not be worse. Only months earlier, Pope Innocent VIII had issued a brand new Bull Sumus Desiderantes, declaring witchcraft an official threat to Christendom. The ink is barely dry yet. Dominican inquisitors prowl like wolves that skipped breakfast. Wiesenfurt's burgomaster, eager to impress Rome, turns the town hall into a courtroom draped with black cloth and bad intentions. Congratulations, you're starring in your first witch trial. They arrest you at dawn. 2 guards escort you through streets still shining with dew. Housewives part their curtains. Children clutch wooden dolls carved into saints. Someone tosses garlic at your feet, call back to Section 2's cologne, but ruder this time. You suppress a smile. Gallows humor is the only kind on offer. Inside the hall, torches sputter, illuminating a panel of stern men in feathered caps. A clerk scratches notes furiously. He can't believe his luck, real witch meat, before breakfast. Your accuser, Gertrude, steps forward, clutching her rosary and half a loaf of rye for moral support, apparently. She swears you healed her belly without a single prayer. The crowd gasps. Light joke number 1. You resist the urge to market that as a new slogan. Miracle tea works faster than grace. Evidence piles up. A tanner claims you foretold yesterday's rain. You said smells like a storm. A stable boy insists your horse technically borrowed whispered directions in Latin. Worst of all, the town cat chooses that moment to curl around your ankles, purring like a tiny brimstone engine. The Inquisitor's eyebrow lifts. Clearly Satan is into felines. They haul you to a side chamber lined with instruments whose only purpose is to make optimism feel silly. You remind yourself that immortality comes with certain perks, like rapid healing, but pain is still very much a thing. The Inquisitor examines a copy of the freshly published Malleus Maleficarum, yes, the Hammer of Witches itself. He reads passages aloud about herbal unguents, enabling flight casting you side-eye every time the word ointment appears. You consider pointing out his pronunciation faults, but discretion beats pedantry when irons are heating. Interrogation begins. Where were you born farther than the road behind me? How old are you old enough to know better than answer that? Not helpful. They demand proof you're not in league with dark powers. You suggest brewing tea for everyone so they can judge its benign nature. They decline. Light joke number 2, evidently, degustation is not a recognized forensic method. Hours pass. You grow thirsty, ironic given the original charge. Through a high window, you spot swallows looping above carefree punctuation against blue sky. Memory flashes the Pilgrim Road, Geoffrey's laughter, the widow's scandalous tales. You cling to them like talismans. They remind you you've walked out of worse nights, plague bells, rebel fires, rat-born chaos. This, you tell yourself, is just another page. Evening. A new witness appears, Master Matthias, the local pig keeper. He testifies that one of his sows recently gave birth to a piglet with a human-like face, common birth defect, but sensational fodder. He claims it squealed your name before dying. The audience murmurs. Weird fact number 1, animals really do stand trial here. Pigs, goats, even dolphins in coastal towns. One famous French case saw a rooster executed for laying an egg. Historians still debate whether such trials reflected sincere superstition or were theatrical warnings to keep peasants in line. But either way, you do not want to be pig-adjacent right now. The burgomaster calls for the water test. They drag you to the town pond, where frogs croak lullabies no one wants to hear. If you float, you're guilty. If you sink, innocent, but drowned, medieval justices cheerful 2 for 1. Ropes bind your wrists. As they hoist you onto the pier, you remember crocodile poop sunscreen section 1, rat diplomacy section 2, and chamber pot gymnastics section 3. Survival, you decide, demands creativity. Just before they shove you in, you produce a small vial, hidden in your boot, powdered valerian root mixed with willow bark. You claim it repels evil spirits. Sprinkle it on the water, you say, and truth will reveal itself. The Inquisitor hesitates. Superstition meets marketing campaign. Finally, he orders the bailiff to oblige. The powder hits the pond, releasing a pungent aroma somewhere between wet grass and old socks. Frogs scatter, bubbles swirl, some townsfolk gasp, convinced they see a cross shape in the ripples. Light joke number 3. You consider charging admission for the hallucination. Whether by placebo or providence, the crowd's mood tilts. The Inquisitor, suddenly uneasy, mutters about further scholastic review. Translation, no one wants a riot, sparked by botched execution the day after a papal bull. You are escorted back to the hall, dripping, but breathing. Night stretches thin, torches sputter low. At last, the burgomaster declares a compromise exile. Leave by sunrise, never return. Your stall gear and miraculous tea become town property. You bow politely. Generosity is easier when you value centuries over silver and request one item back, the town cat. Everyone mumbles. They'd rather not keep a possible demon feline. You scoop the purring bundle, tuck it into your cloak, and walk out under stars. Beyond the gate, Fields glisten with moonlit dew. You lay the cat on a stump, scratch behind its ears, and whisper, "Thanks for the last-minute endorsement." It yawns, utterly indifferent, then saunters toward a barn relationship status. It's complicated. Dawn unfurls rose gold across the horizon. You march east along a cobbled road, wet boots squelching. Ahead lies the glitter of Augsburg's merchant fairs, where printed indulgence posters flutter like lazy butterflies. Beyond that, Italian workshops humming with newfangled presses ready to democratize ink. Your tea kettle clanks in your pack, dented but serviceable. You grin despite bruised wrists. Witch trial survivorship badge unlocked. And you learned something in an age of fear. Knowledge looks like magic. Longevity looks like a pact. Better keep future wisdom on a slower drip, maybe invent the concept of NDAs before sharing the next herbal remedy. Wind carries wood smoke and distant church bells. Your scallop shell still hangs from your cloak. It clinks softly, a stowaway memory of shared stories on a pilgrim road. You quicken your pace. A century from now, an artist named Michelangelo will paint ceilings while muttering about back pain. You plan to be there with home-brewed liniment, quietly branded, definitely not sorcery. The road bends toward sunrise. You follow footsteps, steady, heart unhurried. The world keeps spinning. You keep watching. Tea keeps steeping sometimes, with unintended side effects. The morning you step through Mainz's iron gate, the air smells of ink, hot metal, and half-burned sausages, basically the perfume of progress. 40 years have ticked by since your witch trial exit, but you're still 25, wrinkle-free, and slightly paranoid of cat witnesses. A wooden sign creaks overhead, Johann Fust and Peter Schoeffer, printers to the world. The letters look hand-carved, yet identical, mass-produced déjà vu. Inside, presses thump like giant heartbeats. Apprentices in ink-splattered smocks set tiny metal letters into frames while muttering the alphabet like prayer. One offers you a tour for lunch. You hand over a loaf of rye Gertrude would approve, and follow him past stacks of damp paper that smell faintly of wet dog. Light joke number 1, congratulations. Your new cologne is Ode bestseller. They're churning out indulgence slips today. Little tickets promising reduced time in purgatory. 2 for the price of 1. If you buy before Vespers, the foreman crows. Legitimate historical event secured this thunder of metal and ink is already toppling scribes' quills everywhere. You land work proofreading Latin at 3 groschen a week and all the ink fumes you can inhale. Nights you crash in a garret above the shop dreaming of letters marching across parchment like disciplined black beetle. The work is hypnotic. You learn the smell of freshly cast type, hot tin copper, and the faint sweetness of lead oxide. You learn to mind your P's and Q's literally because a mirrored Q looks exactly like a P after 12 hours on your feet. You learn that beeswaxed fingertips make the best erasers and that printers keep pet dogs not for company but to lick spills before they stain tomorrow's sheets. During breaks, you beat ink onto the form with leather-covered balls stuffed with horsehair. The thud-squeak rhythm settles into your bones like a lullaby. Sometimes the foreman lets you pull the bar and the wooden press groans kissing paper to type with a pressure that would impress future car crushers. Apprentices cheer whenever a sheet emerges perfect, then promptly fold it wrong and swear creatively. You teach them milder curses from your plague days. Pluck a rat proves popular. One rainy evening, the lads huddle around a fresh broadside. A monk in Wittenberg just nailed 95 complaints to a church door. You shrug. Ambitious, you don't know it yet, but Martin Luther's list will yank Europe into a family argument that outlasts fashion. Weeks later, a shipment arrives containing a slim quarto bearing your handwriting. Your stomach drops. Those late-night musings you scribbled on scrap have been typeset and bound. Title page, Observations of a Restless Pilgrim, Anonymous. First line, I was born farther than any road behind me. Uh-oh. Copies already left for the Frankfurt Fair, price 1 florin. Worse, an apprentice added a woodcut of your face. Fame, anonymity, and peril all at once. Identity crisis unlocked. You confront the foreman. He shrugs. Good story sells. Historians still debate whether it's true. Touché, light. Joke number 2. You briefly consider demanding royalties. Compound interest over 5 centuries would be sweet. Travelers now corner you in taverns, asking if immortality itches. A minstrel's ballad claims you drink dragon blood. Apparently crocodile poop sunscreen wasn't dramatic enough. You start ducking side streets, grow your hair longer, and perfect an accent that sounds vaguely elsewhere. One dawn, soldiers in Archbishop Albrecht's livery bang on the shop door and seize presses for seditious pamphlets. You slip out a window with 2 satchels, one full of your accidental book, the other crammed with outlawed Luther broadsides. Storms drench you on the road to Strasbourg. Ink bleeds from the pamphlets, speckling Gothic constellations across your cloak. Beneath a bridge, you reread your words by lightning. Weird fact number 1. Early printers sometimes left cat paw prints in wet ink. Collectors will fight over those smudges one day. Strasbourg bustles with presses too, so you sign on under a fake name. Anonymity take 2. You set Greek type for Erasmus, who mutters about free will while misplacing his hat. He gives you his adagia with a playful note, live as if tomorrow you die or never. You laugh longer than the joke deserves. Immortal humor hits different. Trouble shadows printing like an ink stain. City councils debate licenses. Anabaptists pump out manifestos faster than fires can burn them. Light joke number 3. At least the new pests wear italics. Identity unravels further. Every inn keeps a copy of Restless Pilgrim behind the bar. A Paris pirated edition adds steamy romance scenes you definitely didn't live. You feel split between strangers' fantasies and your own quiet habit of well-surviving. One clear night, you climb Strasbourg's cathedral tower. Wind claws your cloak. Bells hum beneath your boots. City lights flicker like scattered embers. Presses thump below each sheet. A spark. You remember Winchester's plague trenches, Canterbury's farting donkeys, Wiesenfurt's rye-scented panic. None of those souls could imagine a world where words multiply like rabbits. You wonder what happens when everybody learns to shout at once, and how a single voice avoids drowning. By dawn, you've decided keep writing, but hide the pages deeper, maybe invent lockable diaries. You sell most remaining copies. Prophet buys a sturdy horse and ride toward the Alps, chasing rumors of Florentine workshops painting heaven onto plaster, crossing the Gotthard Pass. Snow stings your cheeks. At the summit, you bury one book beneath a cairn and whisper, stay lost a while. The wind steals the words, spinning them toward Italy, perhaps toward another press eager to resurrect them. But that's tomorrow's problem. Below vineyards, stripe Lombardy. You whistle Geoffrey's rude refrain, adjust your saddle, and descend. The metal heartbeat of Mainz fades behind you, replaced by distant church bells and the promise of Renaissance color. Time for new ink, new jokes, and please Cosmos, fewer unauthorized biographies. Your horse clip-clops into Milan on a lemon-hued afternoon of 1496, and the whole city feels dipped in wet paint. Silk banners ripple from castle turrets, trumpets braid fanfares through the air, and somewhere inside the red brick bulk of Castello Sforzesco, a Florentine genius is swearing at damp plaster. You tether the horse, still speckled with Mainz ink flecks, and follow the scent of walnut oil toward the ducal court, hoping to barter your illegible sketches for dinner. Inside the great hall, everything gleams polished marble floors, lapis columns, and nobles so perfumed you could pass out and smell good doing it. Courtiers whirl in velvet, leaving shockwaves of mint and rosewater. You notice sleeves stitched with tiny pomegranates, arrows, and even hedgehogs love messages coated in silk. Weird fact number 1 in Renaissance. Etiquette. A hedgehog on a lady's cuff means my heart bristles until you stroke it. Who needs emojis when you've got rodents and rayon? An attendant mistakes you for the latest court jester. Those boots say comedic timing, hands you a Murata, and shoves you toward a dais where Duke Ludovico Sforza lounges. He waves a dismissive jeweled hand. Entertainment but tasteful. A lute player launches soft chords. You juggle 3 apples filched from a sideboard crack, a joke about Mainz indulgence coupons. Light joke number 1, buy 2 sins, get purged of 1 free, and earn polite tittering. The Duke's mistress flashes a hedgehog-stitched smile. Job secured. After the banquet, you sneak down cloisters lit by rush torches and stumble into a candlelit refectory where Leonardo da Vinci, paint splattered and ecstatic, stands before a half-finished Last Supper. You blurt, Judas needs less eyebrow. He wheels around, scrutinizes you, then grins. Exactly. By sunrise, you're perched on scaffolding, holding a lantern, while he experiments with lap-lap layers of tempera. He dubs you Il Testimony the Witness, because you never age, and therefore make the perfect long-term art critic. Weeks slide past in a blur of pigment and gossip. Mornings you juggle quips for the Duke. Afternoons you model Hans drapery, an occasional smirk for Leonardo. Evenings you share wine with seamstresses, decoding flirt stitches. One shows you a sleeve. Secret entwined ivy leaves mean, cling to me. Strawberries promise spring kisses, and thorny roses warn, flatter me wrong and bleed. You ask if anybody embroiders turnips, call back to that time travel launch vegetable, and she nearly snorts a bead through her nose. A courier bursts in one dusk with alarming news: Charles VIII of France has invaded Italy. Milan panics. Soldiers polish halberds. Bankers hide ledgers and wine barrels. Leonardo contemplates converting spiral staircases into emergency exit slides. Legitimate historical event locked in. You volunteer for messenger duty. Immortality handles risk well and rides south, dripping with Sforza dispatches. Roadside inns gossip that the French king looks 12 and wields cannons the size of ox carts. At Parma, you sleep in a hayloft buzzing with fleas so persistent they might be plague reunion fans. Light joke number 2, nice to see you, but I left my rat at home. Back in Milan, the court scrambles to impress French dignitaries with a masquerade. You help design eccentric costumes, satyrs with clockwork tails, cloud nymphs billowing scented steam, early special effects via hidden braziers, and damp rosemary. Your own outfit, a comet trailing silver ribbons, because nothing says blink, and you'll miss me like celestial fabric. When Charles's envoys enter armor gleaming like kitchenware, they gape at the spectacle. Musicians unfurl chromatic madrigals that would make Geoffrey's donkey blush. You perform a tightrope walk across the hall's width, juggling hedgehog-embroidered kerchiefs while reciting lines from your accidental Restless Pilgrim book. The crowd gasps, the envoys applaud, the Duke beams later, pressing a purse of ducats into your palm for making fear look festive. Leonardo invites you to his workshop for a celebratory supper of pickled trout and candied pumpkin. Between mouthfuls, he sketches helicopters and snarls about plaster chemistry. You mention that centuries hence, people will dispute whether the Last Supper's flaking paint was poor technique or humidity. He laughs. Historians still debate whether I should have painted it in oils. You clink goblets, academic debate phrase achieved. War drums eventually drown madrigals. French troops approach, the Duke flees, Milan riots. You join the exodus, cluttering the city gate, artists, bakers, hedgehogs, sewists, clutching trunks. Cannon fire booms like thunder, dipped in iron. Smoke corkscrews skyward, turning moonlight marmalade orange. You guide a gaggle of tailors along vineyard paths, cracking jokes to keep spirits stitched. Light joke number 3, cheer up. At least the cannons aren't firing fashion critiques. By dawn, fugitives sprawl beneath olive trees. You study Leonardo's notebook, a swirl of gears, wings, and mirrored script. He sleeps nearby, quill ink staining his beard. You feel a tug you haven't felt since Winchester Plague pits a protective urge equal parts mortal and immortal. You slip one of your mind's pamphlets under his arm as a makeshift pillow, thinking maybe future scholars will puzzle over that hybrid artifact. Southward trek leads to Florence, where Medici exile means Republic banners flap boldly. You send word ahead to Lorenzo de Pierfrancesco's circle. They need jesters, muses, and quasi-immortal tea brewers. Meanwhile, you accompany Leonardo to Venice to pitch canal dredging designs. Guy never quits side quests. Venetian canals glitter teal beneath salt-tanged breezes. Courtesans drift by like scented lanterns. Merchants haggle over pepper and printing licenses. You catch whispers that Spain is about to sail beyond ocean edges, rumor ripe for another century's mischief. That night, sipping almond milk on a moon-washed balcony, you realize your unending life feels less like lonely wandering and more like weaving threads crossing epics, knotting into strange embroidery whose secret code only you can read. You vow, trimmed humility share insights, sparingly hide in footnotes. Keep hedgehogs for private sleeves. These people aren't ready for smartphones or SPF 50. Give them too much they burn, or worse, light a pyre for you again. Leonardo heads back toward his canvas-cluttered destiny, giving you a hug that leaves chalk ghosts on your tunic. Arrivederci, Comet, he whispers. Your heart pinches, immortality spares flesh, but not feelings. Watching him stride away beneath striped awnings, you know you'll blink, and he'll be a fresco on history's wall. You remount, turning east this time, because a rumor says Constantinople's Greek scholars are translating ancient star charts no one's seen since Alexandria's library popped its cork. Maybe you'll learn a constellation shaped like a hedgehog embroidered astronomy. Why not? The horse snorts, as if agreeing that destiny's detours beat boredom. Road dust rises warm and cinnamon-scented. You glance back once. Milan's spires dim in haze, yet you carry its sounds, press hammers, dance, drums, laughter under masquerade stars. Ahead the sky stretches brand new, just begging for the next brushstroke. Your boots splash into a puddle that smells like rotting barley mixed with dread. Welcome to London, July 1665 population. Mostly rats. You've just stepped off a river barge stacked with barrels of Dutch gin and 3 sneezing dockhands. The boatman mutters that whole parishes are shutting up, which turns out not to be a polite suggestion, but a literal quarantine red-painted crosses on doors Lord have mercy upon us in shaky brushstrokes. It's Winchester 1348 all over again, only with taller buildings and more creative swear words. You rent an attic in Seething Lane, across from a fast-talking clerk named Samuel Pepys, who journals everything, including you suspect the color of your socks. The landlord, eager for tenants brave or foolish enough to stay, throws in free lavender sprigs to mask death stink. Light joke number 1. Lavender won't stop fleas, but at least you'll pass away smelling like a grandmother's linen drawer. By day, you assist an apothecary, grinding dried toad skin and saffron into anti-plague pearls. Customers queue around the block, clutching pomanders and brandy bottles. A city ordinance forces children to smoke tobacco in school because someone reasons that smoke kills miasma. Weird fact number 1, London's only era when detention meant not having a pipe. You watch 12-year-olds puff like miniature chimneys and wonder if immortality includes secondhand regrets. Bills of mortality nail to church doors every Thursday. Numbers climb faster than gamblers' debts. You help mark houses shut up alighting food through slats to families praying behind nailed boards. One night, a mother begs you to carry a note to her sister across the Thames. You do, and slip a hedgehog-embroidered ribbon into the envelope callback couture to say, "Stay prickly, stay alive." July bleeds into August, and carts of corpses rumble nightly. Bell ringers tire, grave diggers strike for higher wages. You volunteer at a pest house on Bunhill Fields, spooning posset into fevered mouths, while plague doctors flap by in beaked masks, early cosplay with 0 cool points. You crack that the beak should be stuffed with crocodile poop sunscreen for extra protection. The physician doesn't laugh, but the apprentice behind him snorts so hard his mask fogs. Pepys, ever curious, invites you to supper of anchovies and wine in his paneled parlor. He asks your age. You dodge with old enough to prefer gin neat. He confides that the king's physician recommends brisk walks to outrun infection. You picture Charles II speed-walking in periwig and nearly spit anchovy across the diary. Historians still debate whether such gentle advice saved anyone or just increased royal cardio. September's rains arrive, but death tolls keep booming. You escape the city nightly to sleep under elm trees on Hampstead Heath. Memories of Magna Carta, mud, and Milan masquerades murmuring in your dreams. One dawn, you spot city officials finally ordering dogs and cats, killed hundreds culled in the mistaken belief they spread plague. You clench fists. You've seen this blame game since Winchester's rat diplomacy. You salvage one scrawny tabby with a familiar demon cat glare and name her Pudding for the street where you found her. Winter freezes outbreak momentum. By February 1666, plague deaths fall. You let yourself hope. Then, on a breezy September night, a bakery in Pudding Lane. Yes, the cat's street queue. Omen hiccups sparks into stacked kindling. Flames sprint along timber houses like gossip with legs. You wake to church bells clanging, fire and skies the color of melted copper. You grab Pudding your plague notebooks and 2 flasks of gin priorities before racing to the Thames. Wind whips sparks into fire snow. Roofs detonate. Molten lead gutters down walls. Bucket lines form, but water sloshes uselessly against heat you can taste. Memorably, your hedgehog ribbon ignites for a half second, light joke number 2 proof that prickliness isn't fire retardant. Bridges choke with refugees, hauling feather beds and parrots in cages. One man wheels an entire cheese the size of a cannonball. Another drags a mattress stuffed with Acclaim's rare tulip bulbs. You shepherd a gaggle of schoolboys, the ex-tobacco smokers, toward a wherry shouting directions over roaring flame. They obey primarily because you bribe them with gin-moistened hankies to breathe through irresponsible yes, but better than smoke. Across the river, you watch London become a pyre. Church spires topple like wax wicks. Warehouses boom as liquor casks explode. Pudding hisses at the sparks. You cradle her murmuring jokes about toasted rats on a stick. The boys laugh through tears light. Joke number 3 accomplished, and one blurts, "Maybe the fire will burn the plague away." You open your mouth to reassure, then realize history might agree. Historians still debate whether the Great Fire actually ended the plague by torching flea-ridden warrens. Dawn paints ruins ash pink. 5 days of inferno leave an amphitheater of smoking timbers and stone skeletons. You volunteer on clearing crews carting rubble toward the Thames. Pudding prowls charred beams, chasing singed mice, a tiny victory dance in disaster's arena. Pepys appears face smeared with soot, jubilant that his buried Parmesan cheese survived another diary entry for the ages. Royal proclamations promise a new, wide-streeted, brick-walled London. You sign up as a laborer and soon help surveyor Christopher Wren measure fire-blackened lanes. He babbles visionary geometry, straight boulevards, domed cathedrals reaching God via perfect curves. You suggest including more public pumps. Winchester's smoke memory still stings your lungs. He sketches fountains shaped like dolphins. Compromise sealed. Months blur in hammer clangs and brick dust. Londoners swap plague horror stories for fire anecdotes, trauma inflation, but healing nonetheless. Coffee houses bloom pungent and noisy, perfect for an immortal needing constant caffeine and newer jokes. You field questions about survival. How'd you outrun death twice, you wink? Good moisturizer, garlic and vinegar, callback delivered. One chilly January evening of 1667, you stand on newly widened King Street, staring at St. Paul's skeletal frame rising like a phoenix blueprint. Pepys ambles up diary, in mittened fist raving about fresh theater licenses. He asks what you'll do next. You eye the half-built city and feel the old itch history's turn of the page. Atlantic whispers of colonies, flush with furs, and unexplored maps tease your ears. Maybe it's time to sail. Fresh continents, fewer witch trials, new viruses joy. You pet Pudding. She purrs like a distant drum. As snowflakes settle on charred beams, you remember Florence fireworks, Canterbury farts, crocodile sunscreen, hedgehog sleeves, and that flawless turnip pocket from day one. London has burned, but you remain unscorched, smoked yes, but alive. You take a last deep breath of cold, tar and pine-scented air, toast the city with invisible gin, and whisper a prayer that its next chapter will be less crispy. Tomorrow you'll book passage on a ship named Restoration, ironic branding for a guy whose biological clock never needed restoring. For tonight, you head back to the coffee house where jazz hasn't been invented yet, but the clatter of dice and militant caffeine buzz serve nicely. Pudding trails behind tail high, a soot-dusted sentinel ushering you toward another century's adventure. Your ship, the Restoration, doesn't make it to the New World. A nor'easter herds the creaking hulk back toward England like a sheepdog with anger issues, and by March 1672 you're staggering onto the Portsmouth Quay sea salt stuck in your eyebrows and putting the cat clinging to your shoulder like a damp epaulette. London is rebuilding, but according to dockside gossip, something far weirder than plague or fire is spreading ideas. Coffee houses are hatching inventions, the way haylofts hatch fleas, and gentlemen with wigs tall enough to rent out as apartments now argue about invisible forces called gravity. You shrug if anyone knows about weightless mysteries. It's the ageless pilgrim with an accidental autobiography. You head straight for Jonathan's coffee house birthplace of the Royal Society's juiciest rumors. Inside, the air thrums with quills scratching equations on napkins, and the scent is a confounding espresso meets goat hide medley. Light joke number 1. It's basically a science fair crossed with a barn and priced like artisanal foam. A bespectacled clerk waves a pamphlet Robert Hooke has demonstrated springs that measure air pressure barometers and claims the world is elastic, which makes you image a hedgehog sleeve stretching competition. A besotted fellow mistakes you for a foreign savant. Your cloak still glittered with Venetian canal salt, so you're ushered to Gresham College, where Hooke himself is lecturing beneath a chandelier that squeaks ominously. He jabs at sketches of telescopes thicker than tree trunks and mutters that our salvation lies in bigger lenses. When he calls for volunteers to view insect innards under his new compound microscope, you step up half curious, half polite. The flea on the slide looks like a medieval gargoyle wielding garden shears. Tell no one. Hooke whispers, but I think plague came from these brutes, not foul miasma. You grin, rat whisperer prophecy vindicated after 3 centuries. 2 benches over a silent Cambridge scholar listens Isaac Newton, hair flowing like powdered lightning. He's fiddling with prisms, sending rainbows onto a wall tapestry of St. George. You drop a quiet comment about color mixing. He blinks, then invites you to Trinity College to run some experiments. Translation, you'll hold ladders while he drops things on your head. Cambridge smells of wet stone and adolescent ambition. Newton's rooms resemble an alchemist's garage sale. Retorts, mirrors, glass orbs, fizzing with unknown vapors. One evening, he reenacts the legendary apple incident. For your benefit, ties a string to the stem, swings it like a pendulum, and times the arc with his own pulse. Apple smacks him square on the wig. Light joke number 2. Gravity always personal, never polite. During winter of 1674, he tests optics by sliding a bodkin between eyeball and socket to distort vision. You gag. He nods, scribbling observations about colored spots, putting hisses from a bookshelf, perhaps jealous of the attention. Weird fact number one, Newton actually did this, though historians still debate whether he achieved insight or just invented the migraine. Your immortality forces you to watch your words. When Newton puzzles over planetary orbits, you bite your tongue for fear of revealing calculus shortcuts. You read in a 21st century textbook at an airport kiosk, long story, future story. Instead, you brew mint nettle tea. Yes, the alleged witch brew, and he insists it sharpens concentration. Soon, half of Trinity is sipping your orbital infusion, believing it prevents scurvy of the mind. You label the packets with tiny embroidered hedgehogs, cling to knowledge carefully. July 1687, Newton's Principia Mathematica finally rolls off the Cambridge press, its Latin dense as fruitcake. The Royal Society hosts a gala. You attend in borrowed satin, marveling how ink once used for indulgence slips now etches equations, bending the cosmos. Across the room, Edmund Halley rhapsodizes about comets returning like bad house guests. You recall seeing a fiery streak during Canterbury Nights and realize you've lived through two passes of the same celestial snowball. Suddenly, Hooke bursts in demanding credit for the inverse square notion. Academic daggers flash, wigs tremble. You interject with calming humor. Light joke number 3. Gentleman history will give you both equal misery just later. Laughter diffuses tension, at least until the port runs out. By 1690, London's rebuild is nearly done. Wide avenues, brick facades, and Wren's dome rising like a limestone bubble. You stroll beneath scaffolds, trading plague memories for gravity jokes with stonemasons who now test dropped hammers for science. In a bookseller's window, you spot Restless Pilgrim, 7th edition, revised to include a chapter where you supposedly flirt with Cleopatra. You sigh. Anonymity is leaking faster than Newton's patience with Hooke. The following spring, you visit Paris to see Christian Huygens demonstrate a pocket watch accurate to seconds perfect for timing sarcastic pauses. Cafes along the Seine buzz with talk of Cartesian vortices versus Newtonian attraction. You recall Milo the ox from an old fable and wonder if lifting heavier weights daily could disprove either theory or just build calves like cannonballs. One stormy night, lightning dances atop Notre Dame's towers. Huygens muses whether electricity is a fluid. You nearly blurt, wait till Ben Franklin flies a kite, but swallow it with wine. Instead, you share the crocodile poop sunscreen anecdote. The Dutch physicist laughs so hard, he sketches a spiral of excrement powering the sun. You decide to pocket the drawing for a modern art auction 300 years hence. Back in England, a lunar society blooms in Birmingham tinkerers, meeting on full moon nights to ensure safe rides home. You bike, ride a hobby horse out for one session in 1703, trading hedgehog-stitched handkerchiefs for steam engine prototypes. Thomas Newcomen's early pump wheezes like a plague bell, crossed with a kettle, but lifts water from mines and hope from lungs. Legitimate historical event lodged the first commercial steam engine, the heartbeat of a future soot-stained century you'll soon inhale. With every breakthrough, you feel the world accelerating. Letters once crawling on minds' presses now dart via stagecoach. Ideas cross oceans in bottles, soon to hop on copper wires. Eternity's pace quickens, but you remain the same heartbeat in a body that refuses to expire. Some nights you lie in a quiet Cambridge meadow, fresh apple scent in the grass, and worry your memories are piling like unshelved books. Volumes of grief, joy jokes, and hedgehogs without an index. One dawn, Newton, older, but still volatile, shuffles beside you. What will we understand 100 years hence, he wonders. You consider antibiotics, rockets, touchscreen cat videos, but answer softly, probably that we understood very little. He smiles, surprising you, and offers a pocket full of apple seeds. Plant them someplace wild, he says. You nod, bury them that night, outside a shepherd's cottage, where goats chew moss in moonlight. As 1715 rolls round, Halley's Comet blazes once again. Crowds panic, preachers sob, coffee houses overflow. You stand on London Bridge, watching its tail smear the sky like powdered silver. Your pulse is calm. The universe reuses scripts, same comet, different playbill. Pudding, ancient and toothless, now nestles in your cloak. She's lived an almost immortal life beside you, proof that time sometimes offers loyalty instead of loss. People ask if the comet means apocalypse. You chuckle. The world won't end tonight. It's got too many arguments scheduled for tomorrow. They laugh, shoulders unclench. Somebody buys you coffee. The scientific revolution, you realize, hasn't broken your brain. It's broken the chains around wonder. Superstition still lurks, but microscopes, prisms, vacuum pumps, their lanterns poking holes in the dark. You've survived plague fire witch hunts and wrong turns across oceans, yet a simple equation F equals ma nearly makes you weep, because it proves the cosmos runs on rules and not merely whims. Stars fade and dawn's gray. The comet dims behind chimney smoke. You pat Pudding hoist your ever-traveling pack and stride toward a new-built stagecoach marked York, Manchester, Glasgow. Rumor says a Scotsman named Watt is tinkering with Newcomen's engine. Rumor smells like wet barley and destiny. The road awaits hedgehogs and all. You step off the stagecoach into a Paris that fizzes like champagne left too long in the sun, August 1750, when every alley is a thesis and every cafe serves philosophy by the thimble. Roasted bean perfume mingles with horse sweat and the powdery cloud that drifts from aristocrats' wigs whenever they nod too enthusiastically. Your boots crunch broken nutshells scattered outside the Café Procope birthplace of more manifestos than croissants, and you remember Winchester mud, Milan paint fumes, Newton's and apple thud, same play, fresh set. Pudding is gone now. 19 good feline years, but you still find phantom paw weight on your shoulder when the city noise grows sharp. Inside porcelain cups clink. Quills scratch dispatches to posterity. A cherub-faced waiter deposits you at Voltaire's table because he mistakes your ageless complexion for minor German duke. Voltaire squints, eyes bright breath, decidedly not, then launches into a tirade about censorship, church tithes, and why umbrellas should be mandatory civic equipment. You nod, sipping chocolate so thick it might qualify as building material, and toss out a hedgehog sleeve callback. He cackles, slaps the table, and declares you un esprit piquant. Congratulations, you just got roasted by the Enlightenment's top roaster. Evenings find you in Madame Geoffrin's salon, walls glittering with gilt mirror panels, and ideas sharper than her new satin bodice. Candles gutter, while Montesquieu claims climate shapes governments. Buffon insists New World animals are puny, and a young chemist named Lavoisier quietly counts oxygen atoms in his head. Between debates, you fold calling cards into paper cranes that flutter across the parquet. Light joke number 1, you quip that the cranes represent free thought, light enough to fly, but still likely to burn if you set them too close to the clergy. On a rain-slick Tuesday, Denise Diderot barges in, waving freshly printed sheets, the first volume of the Encyclopédie 17 folios of pure, unfiltered, dangerous knowledge. Legitimate historical event secured. He begs safe storage. You volunteer attic space above a hatter who owes you for introducing mint nettle tea to the wig-itching crowd. Nights you and Diderot collate pages amid hat molds and lavender sachets binding big ideas with twine that smells like 1348's plague doors, history loops with new ribbons. Weird fact number 1, between print runs, you visit the Palais Royal to witness Jacques de Vaucanson's automaton duck. The brass bird quacks flaps, eats grain, and yes, digests it, ejecting little pellets on a silver tray. Parisians cheer as though witnessing divine bowel movements. You lean over to a marquee and whisper, I knew poultry had opinions since the witch trial piglet, and he nearly drops his lorgnette. Success breeds attention. Attention attracts censors. One foggy dawn, royal guards raid the hatter's loft. You wake beneath mountains of brims while bayonets prod bales of contraband wisdom. Thinking fast, you spill a barrel of powdered starch. The room erupts in white fog, thicker than Newton's prism rainbows. You grab bundles of encyclopedia plates, slide down a hat rack like a playground fire pole, and vanish into Rue Saint-Honoré while guards sneeze themselves cross-eyed. Historians still debate whether those pages lost that morning ever resurfaced, but a certain antique shop in 1923 will sell a hat box full of enlightenment to an unsuspecting tourist. You've seen the receipt thumbnail in a future museum catalog. Weeks later, a public demonstration of the duck is interrupted by a mob protesting bread prices. Clubs swing, glass shatters, and someone mistakes you, a foreign accent satchel of papers, for a tax farmer. A blade flashes. You dodge, but your sleeve gets skewered, hedgehog embroidery sliced clean. Light joke. Number 2, you shout. Careful, that hedgehog was hand-raised, buying 2 seconds to disappear under the stage, an out-of-service hatch smelling of poultry pellets and panic. The streets simmer with slogans. No dependence without representation. Flower not philosophy. Down with tail powder taxes. You swear you can feel tide lines of revolt lapping at your boots. Yet each night, salons still glow quills, still scratch and sighs still fog the windows, while Rousseau warbles about noble savages, breath still catastrophic. It's the quiet before a cannonade you've heard, in other keys Winchester's plague hush. London's pre-fire drought crackle history's throat clearing. You keep a low profile, running a discreet lending library out of the Café Procopi's cellar microscopes for medics, celestial charts for sailors, a battered telescope once tweaked by Newton. Light joke number 3. The lending fee is one new idea or a really good pastry, and clientele lean pastry, because originality is hard. When King Louis XV dies and the court flutters with fresh gossip, you join cartographers mapping Paris's sewers safer company than pamphleteers for hazard pay and anonymity. Down among brick tunnels, torchlight flickers on rat armies whose ancestors no doubt remember your plague diplomacy. You tip an imaginary hat and move on. Outside, spring 1770 drenches lilac petals across the Tuileries. A street hawker sells toy guillotines that slice sugar cubes. Children squeal. You shiver, feeling a blade-shaped future slide into place. Time to leave. You pack a leather valise hedgehog swatches, duck pellet souvenir Newton's apple seeds, now saplings in clay pots, and a fresh volume of the encyclopedia wrapped in waxed cloth. At the diligence station, you book passage east toward Vienna land, of waltzes that haven't been written and coffee that hasn't learned restraint. Before boarding, you stroll the Seine one last twilight. Gas lamps haze the embankment. Notre Dame's dark silhouette cuts the indigo sky. You whisper to the water that you'll be back maybe after the storm clears, maybe to watch a young artillery officer rewrite Europe with cannon math. But tonight you wish Paris the tenderness it rarely gives itself. May its ideas endure, even if some heads do not. The coach rattles away iron wheels, clacking like presses in mines, like looms in Manchester yet to whir. You exhale, counting beats of horse hooves. Steady, immersive ASMR for the immortal insomniac. Stars smear overhead. Somewhere beyond them, Comet Halley traces its patient loop unconcerned with salon gossip. You fold into your seat, let the road drum lull you, and dream of mechanical ducks taking flight, not bound by gears, but by the audacity of minds that refuse to rust. Smoke curls from 1,000 chimneys in a sky the color of yesterday's dishwater as your packet boat noses into Liverpool autumn 1782. You've spent a cheerful Viennese decade waltzing arguing with Mozart over whether minuets count as cardio, and planting Newton's apple saplings in Schönbrun's gardens. But rumor of humming looms and spinning frames has tugged you back to England. Apparently, the future is being woven in a factory powered by fire-eating rocks. You disembark to the shriek of gulls, the stink of coal tar, and the helpful warning of a dockhand, welcome to the north. The fog murders umbrellas. The Leeds Turnpike rattles your bones past fields stippled with soot-black sheep. In the distance, tall brick boxes belch clouds that look suspiciously like dragons that swallowed bonfires. This is New Manchester, birthplace of noise. You rent a room above a public house where the ale's head is half coal dust, half optimism. The landlord offers you earplugs made of candle tallow. Light joke number 1. They melt if you listen to gossip for too long. At dawn, you join a queue outside Arkwright & Sons' spinning mill, a red brick colossus straddling the Earwell. Inside, iron shafts spin so fast they shimmer. Belts slap overhead like impatient serpents. Overseers shout time in beats, not minutes. 3 strokes to oil, 2 to clear lint. A sign claims punctuality is salvation. You mutter that garlic and vinegar moisturizer also helps, but no one hears above the racket. Your first job is wiping grease from Flyer Arms' leather apron on hair wrapped under a cap to prevent the infamous scalping catch. Half the workforce is under 12 nimble-fingered and wide-eyed. One lad, Alfie, boasts he can dart between spinning mules without losing a toe. Weird fact number 1, some mills employ scavenger kids to crawl under running machines and snatch loose fluff, more dangerous than juggling hedgehogs on a tightrope, though you suspect management hasn't tried either. Industrial rhythm sucks you in, hiss of steam engines, clack of shuttle, human coughs sinking to piston wheeze. After a week, you notice the mid-morning lull. Machines need 15 minutes to cool when boilers are refilled. Idea hot water plus roasted beans equals instant awakeness. You rig an old teapot slip in contraband colonial coffee you brought from Vienna and pass tin cups to the coughing spinners. Eyes brighten, production surges, an overseer grunts approval and accidentally invents the phrase, coffee break. Light joke number 2. You consider charging a halfpenny per cup, but remember your mind's autobiography fiasco, best not to monetize too loudly. Evenings, you join Luddites at a tavern called the Broken Frame. They grumble that mechanical looms steal honest work. You sympathize. Immortality lets you see both sides progress paves roads, but sometimes it drives over people. When tempers flare, you distract them with the crocodile poop sunscreen anecdote. Result table-wide laughter, tension, diffused trademark callback deployed. Summer 1811 brings stifling heat and rag-soaked windows. One Wednesday, the boiler safety valve sticks, pressure surges. A deafening boom flings iron plates like playing cards. You dive behind bales of raw cotton, heart banging louder than the explosion. Smoke clears 2 workers' injured machines mangled. Management blames drunken stoking, and docks pay for idleness. Rumbling discontent grows beyond tavern talk. 3 nights later, you follow Alfie and fellow stockingers down a moonlit lane to an empty warehouse. Inside a meeting, soothing lantern light, calloused hands gripping cudgels, a manifesto read aloud by a masked man calling himself General Ludd. Legitimate historical event, the Luddite uprisings. They plan to smash frames at dawn. You weigh your roles. Witness, mediator, or quiet ghost. Finally, you raise a hand. Let me try words first. The crowd agrees mostly because your unwrinkled face looks suspiciously persuasive. Next day, you confront the mill owner, Mr. Barnes, in his mahogany-paneled office that smells of ink and grudges. You propose shorter shifts, safety checks, and radical notion, a penny an hour for coffee break upkeep. Barnes scoffs. Historians still debate whether charity breeds sloth. He declares mangling philosophy to dodge payroll. Negotiations collapse. At dusk, the Luddites charge hammers flashing. You herd children out a side gate while iron clanks and glass shatters. Sparks dance above the roof, echoing London's fire, but confined to one building. No deaths, mercifully, but by dawn the mill is a skeleton, draped in cotton flotsam. Soldiers march in. Parliament drafts the 1812 frame-breaking act death penalty for sabotage. Tension grips the district like a spinning mule's jaws. You decide it's time to vanish again. Before leaving, you slip Alfie a pouch of apple seeds and tell him to plant them far from smokestacks. You board a coal barge upriver to Liverpool, soot settling on your coat like second skin. Along the route, new canals carve the countryside into turquoise ribbons. Iron rails glint on embankments. Rumor says a locomotive soon will race a horse. You picture Newton cackling at gravity harnessed to wheels. In Liverpool docks, you meet an engineer named George Stevenson tinkering with a puffing monster called Blucher. He invites you to ride the test track. You cling to a handrail as pistons slam, steam whooshes, and the ground blurs. Light. Joke number 3, you yell. Next stop, coffee refill, but the wind steals the punchline. When the engine screeches to a halt, you climb down, trembling, exhilarated. You've outrun plague carts, witch hunts, and comets, yet speed itself now has a roaring coal-breath voice. That night, seagulls wheel over the Mersey, cawing through a haze, touched orange by furnace glow. You sit on a pier piling feet, dangling above black water. Memory scrolls cathedral shadows in Canterbury, Leonardo's smirk in Milan Newton's apple brews, Parisian ducks, and the whistle of a steam mule devouring cotton. Progress is a hungry thing. Sometimes you feed it beans, sometimes blood. Your immortal burden is to watch nudge, and when possible, slip a safety valve into history's boiler. Dawn paints chimney plumes rose gold. Immigrant ships crowd the harbor, families bound for Boston, Quebec, Rio. Opportunity and desperation share deck space. You finger a passage ticket steerage class on the Liberty Bell, bound for New York, 1815. Across the Atlantic, a country just 39 years young is laying turnpikes through forests and rewriting constitutions on napkins. Maybe they'll need coffee breaks too. You toss one last glance at Manchester's distant smokestacks, gray exclamation points, in a story still drafting itself, then board the tender. As ropes splash free and gulls cry overhead, you promise the sooty skyline 2 things. First, you'll send letters lobbying for child labor laws. Second, you'll return when the air smells less like burnt pudding. Below decks, you settle on a burlap bunk journal open. The entry reads, coal tasted bitter, progress tasted burnt, but coffee tasted hopeful. You smile, cap the ink, and let the ship's creak rock your ageless bones toward another sunrise. The Liberty Bell spits you onto Manhattan's muddy wharf in 1815, and the decades that follow pass like pages. You barely have time to dog-ear canal digs, telegraph clicks, daguerreotype flashes, each innovation, another piston in history's growing engine. You hawk coffee outside rail depots, cheer the first transcontinental line, and watch a gold rush crowd beat your sales record by boiling beans in dynamite tins, risk-reward ratio dubious. You sidestep the Civil War's cannon thunder by volunteering as a nurse's aide, wrapping bandages and slipping soldiers hedgehog-stitched handkerchiefs that whisper cling to hope. By 1914, you're 40-plus in calendar math, but still 25 in the mirror, working as a bicycle messenger in Paris, because irony likes cardio. One sweltering June afternoon, an archduke is shot in Sarajevo, and news ricochets through cafes faster than your pedals can keep up. Mobilization posters bloom on every wall, crimson letters screaming for men, horses, and even homing pigeons. Weird fact number 1, the French army will eventually deploy 30,000 of the feathery telegrams. You deliver conscription slips until dusk, the city's heartbeat shifting from waltz to drumroll. Within weeks, you're in the mud of the Marne as a volunteer stretcher bearer. Immortality doesn't give you a pass, but it does let you haul the wounded with reckless courage. Entropy smells like cordite churned loam, and the burned toast tang of overfired coffee in field kitchens. Shells blossom overhead, lighting trenches and strobes that freeze rats mid-scurry rodent callbacks you did not order. A private scribbles a cartoon of a hedgehog wearing a tin helmet. You laugh, pin it inside your tunic for luck. Light joke number 1. You tell him hedgehogs are naturally spiny, so they're all about trench welfare. Nightly, you brew mint nettle tea in confiscated German mess tins, handing cups down the line. Someone nicknames you Doc Time because you never seem to tire. You're careful never to be photographed. Kodak would have questions about that unchanged jawline. April 1917, gas drifts across no man's land like pale soup broth. You yank on a clumsy respirator that smells of damp cardboard and rubber bands. The lenses fog. Your pulse rams ribs. Memories jump, cut to London's smoke. Milan's cannonade. Winchester's plague miasma. You survive, but the hedgehog cartoon dissolves in sweat, tiny bristles running like ink in rain. Armistice, November 11th, 1918. The guns quit, but something worse sneaks in on troop trains. Influenza, blue-black, and hungry. First you cough, then shiver, then feel heat behind your eyes, like someone pressing a branding iron to your skull. For the first time in 7 centuries, you think, is this it? You collapse in a Paris ward that reeked of disinfectant and despair, clutching your last tin cup of coffee. Fever dreams tangle. Decades. Jeffrey's donkey farts. Leonardo's grin. Newton's apple spinning. Mule's steam whistles every chamber pot you've dodged. You surface long enough to hear a nurse mutter that handsome souls dying young is poetic, which would be flattering if you weren't busy drowning in your own lungs. Doctors bleed some patients, force-feed brandy to others. Historians still debate whether any of those cures helped or merely kept undertakers employed. You ride the fever like whitewater for 6 delirious days. Immortality apparently has a buffer, but no immunity. On the 7th day, your temperature breaks. Sweat soaks sheets and breath returns in fragile sips. Light joke number 2. You croak to the nurse. Guess my moisturizer works after all. She rolls her eyes and stuffs menthol under your nose. By the time you hobble onto a sun-washed boulevard, Paris wears gauze masks and grief like matching accessories. The papers say the flu may have killed more than the war itself. You fold one headline into a paper crane and set it afloat on the Seine, a tiny ship for too big sorrow. The 1920s roar in on jazz horn, blast you first here at Harlem's Cotton Club. You've crossed the Atlantic again, craving fresh tempo. Inside the club, trumpets punch notes so bright they glitter, saxophones snake around your spine. Dancers swivel like gears freed from Victorian drudgery. You sling espresso behind the bar coffee break 2.0 and swap plague tales for scatting riffs. Light joke number 3. You tell patrons the trumpet's mute was invented by a hedgehog who sat on the bell. Laughter harmonizes with the brass, but rhythm masks rumble. October 1929 stock tickers spit doom, and you watch brokers flinging paper like confetti except no band plays. Soup-lined steam smells of carrots and quiet panic. You ladle bowls recall feeding plague victims barley gruel and note that despair's menu rarely changes. 1933 drags you to Berlin, where posters bloom in red and black and crowds salute a mustached orator. You sense kindling beneath the rhetoric. You volunteer with a Quaker Aid Society, helping refugees forge papers. Your steady hands and youthful face slip past checkpoints. One night you hide a family in the attic of a closed hat factory intended for Enlightenment encyclopedias, long ago history reusing hiding spots like well-loved bookmarks. September 1939, Poland shatters under Blitzkrieg. You're in Warsaw ferrying code sheets for the resistance, thanking Newton for calculus that lets you crack ration stamp cereals. Ghetto walls rise, nights shrink. You smuggle penicillin in coffee canisters, binding lids with hedgehog-stitched cloth for luck. An SS patrol searches your satchel. You smile, offer a tin claim. It's chicory. They grimace and wave you on. Taste buds defeat tyranny. For a moment. D-Day, 1944, Omaha Beach. Salt in your teeth. Bullets swarming like mechanized hornets. You drag a radio operator behind a dune. He gasps that you look too young to enlist. Plenty of moisturizer, you shout over artillery. Later, you brew mint nettle tea in a helmet to calm shell-shocked boys. Someone scrawls crocodile sunscreen vet on the pot callback immortality in graffiti form. V-Day erupts in confetti, kisses, and champagne mouthfuls. Under fireworks, you feel both weightless and crushed. Every era ends, but graves remain. Atomic bombs close the Pacific chapter in blinding light. You watch aghast on a Times Square newsreel. Steel drums of science and war beating the same relentless march. The GI Bill colleges flood with ex-soldiers. You audit classes in microbiology. Flu still haunts dreams and computers the size of garages that clatter like the spinning mules and grandchildren. One professor eyes your precise slide drawings and jokes you should get a PhD while you're young. You laugh softly. Young has become the longest joke you know. One rainy 1948 evening in a Brooklyn diner, you open a letter from Alfie's grandson. He's planted an orchard on soot-cleared Manchester soil. Newton apples bloom there every spring. You smile, teardrop marking the ink. Progress can bruise, but sometimes it blossoms. Outside, neon buzzes, taxis hiss, and the smell of coal smoke has faded into gasoline and French fry grease. You step onto the sidewalk, heft the same leather valise, patched, worn but persistent, and hail a cab uptown. Television antennas sprout along rooftops. Inside window glows, post-war families watch variety shows where hosts crack jokes about flying saucers over Roswell. You mentally prepare an alibi. If anyone asks, you're just passing through selling moisturizer and coffee. The cab's radio plays a crooner, crooning "You'll Never Walk Alone." You lean back, watching streetlights smear gold across the windshield, and think plague bells, cannonades, jazz riffs, sirens now doo-wop, all one long lullaby for an ageless witness. Tomorrow the world will invent another reason to shout, but tonight it hums softly, and you eternally, 25 chronically curious, hum along. A jittery black and white TV flickers above the Brooklyn diner, counter its screen no larger than a shoebox. Grayscale dancers line step across the glass, kicking in perfect formation, an accidental portal that yanks you backward 2 decades straight into a sack-soaked memory of the night the Roaring Twenties first cracked open for you like a soda siphon hissing off its cork. Back in 1920, you were the coat check kid at the Cotton Club's secret side door, a gig you scored by trading 1 flask of mint nettle gin for 2 words of password. Inside trumpet valves popped like champagne corks. Duke Ellington's band revved the air into velvet thunder, and flappers jangling bead-fringed skirts taught you the Charleston in heels, sharper than Luddite hammers. Light joke number 1, they teased you for looking 16. If only they knew that technically you were pushing 7 centuries. Prohibition turned bartenders into chemists. You helped one mix crocodile sour equal parts bathtub gin lime, and one whispered callback about medieval sunscreen served in coffee cups to dodge raids. Weird fact number 1, speakeasies sometimes used password-protected tipping tables that rotated liquor into the wall when police barged in. You lost 3 cocktails and 1 hedgehog-stitched cufflink to that mechanism. Then came 24 October 1929. You were bicycling telegrams on Wall Street when the floor dropped figuratively, at first, then literally as brokers fainted. Ticker tape snowed a confetti blizzard without a band. Phones rang like fire bells, and you could almost smell optimism burning. You stooped to help a clerk whose world had gone negative overnight. He stared at the numbers and whispered, "Is this how empires end?" Historians still debate whether leverage or sheer panic pushed more men out of windows, but you remember the quiet flatness that followed louder than any scream. Bread lines soon snaked past newsstands, selling papers for a penny you didn't always have. So you volunteered with the Civilian Conservation Corps, chopping trails in Shenandoah, where mountain air tasted like uninked paper. Evenings around the campfire, you brewed coffee beans courtesy of a friendly hobo and told plague-era stories. The boys laughed, calling them zombie tales, long before Hollywood coined the term. Light joke number 2, you swore Winchester's 1348 flea circus would have liked a New Deal paycheck too. Dust Bowl winds scraped the plains next 1934. You rode a rattling freight car with migrant families, grits stinging teeth like ground glass. Kansas sky turned bronze at noon, and static-charged dust devils, strong enough to arc blue sparks from doorknobs, tiny lightning bolts, and parched kitchens. You taught kids to fold newspaper masks, hedgehog-style origami, while their parents prayed for one green leaf. As crops died, silver screens blossomed. You drifted west to the brand-new paradise of Hollywood, hired on as a continuity assistant, irony for Busby Berkeley musicals. Sound stages smelled of pancake makeup and hot Klieg lights. A director once begged you to keep a top-hatted chorus line of 99 dancers perfectly synced. You whispered Duke Ellington's swing rhythm, and the scene wrapped in one take. Offset, you slipped between camera sheds to dodge reporters curious about the eternally youthful gopher. Good moisturizer, you joked, dabbing your neck with prop glycerin. Cinema became the nation's dream narcotic. In 1936, you watched Modern Times premiere. Chaplin's gears and conveyor belts reminded you of Manchester's spinning mules, only funnier and less likely to sever fingers. Outside Grauman's Chinese theater, you helped tourists trace handprints in wet cement, one lady exclaimed. Your palm fit Tyrone Power's exactly. You smiled, thinking of Michelangelo sketching your hand 5 centuries prior, an undocumented cameo. FDR's New Deal alphabet soup kept soup in bowls, but recovery crawled. You drafted posters for the Works Progress Administration, stylized trains sprinting past wheat sheaves, bold type, urging work builds futures. One night, a park ranger, studying your unlined face under lantern glow, guessed you for the poster's model. You answered with a wink, mystery sells hope. By 1938, storm clouds brewed overseas. But before Europe erupted again, New York threw one last bright party, the 1939 World's Fair. You couldn't resist. Flushing meadows transformed into Tomorrowland, Tryland's spire piercing the sky, Perisphere globe gleaming like a marble of destiny. You queued for the Futurama ride, gliding above miniature superhighways, while a narrator promised traffic-free joyrides in 1960. Light joke number 3, you muttered to the passenger beside you. Just wait till we invent rush hour. In the hall of television, RCA screens shimmered with shadow ghost images, families waving from Queen's broadcast studios. Black and white felt strangely intimate, like a silent film whispering directly into your living room. You caught your reflection beside the phosphor glow, wondered how a face that never alters would fare once every home owns a camera. You made a note, consider becoming a radio voice instead. Evening fireworks crowned the perisphere. Sparks rained hues you'd last seen in Leonardo's experimental pigments. Music swelled. Strangers hugged. The future tasted like cotton candy and tungsten. Yet you felt a cold pinch cafes back in Paris were already whispering Hitler's name. Tomorrow's boulevard might be paved with bomb craters instead of superhighways. You pocketed a souvenir token, Tryland stamped over building the world of tomorrow, and exhaled storing hope like spare change. The diner TV snaps you back to 1948, same monochrome dancers though crisper now. RCA finally perfected the cathode ray kiss. Outside neon letters buzz, and a kid flips a nickel jukebox selector to Billie Holiday. Depression's scars linger, but swing still, shimmies through speakers, proof rhythm can suture wounds. You finish your coffee strong. No crocodile notes, and slide $1 to the waitress wearing cat eyeglasses. She thanks you, asks your age. You grin, old enough to remember when music had no wires. She laughs, chalking it up to Brooklyn sarcasm. You step into night air smelling of rain and car exhaust. Streetlights slice pavement into silver stripes, film noir lighting for a city that survived its own black and white chapter. Above the Empire State Building beams a spotlight that pokes holes through clouds searching perhaps for tomorrow's plot twist. You hail a cab valise. On your lap, hedgehog ribbon, now bookmarks an encyclopedia volume. You never returned. Destination, Washington, D.C. Rumor says, hush hush, scientists split atoms in deserts and generate debates frostier than January. Cold War winds are rising, and Section 13 waits just beyond that curtain. The first thing you notice about 1950 is how shiny everything aims to be. Chrome fenders, Formica tables, televisions polished until they reflect your never-aging grin like a carnival mirror. You land a sales job with Metropolitan Miracle Vacuums, a door-to-door army armed with clipboards and optimism. Each morning, you don a sky blue jacket that smells of fresh vinyl and ambition. Sling a 12-pound suction beast over your shoulder and march into suburbia, where ranch houses sprout faster than apple saplings in Alfie's Manchester orchard. At the Millers, you dump a dramatic pile of test dirt, coffee grounds, mixed with staged confetti onto their new wall-to-wall carpet, then obliterate it with a flourish. Their jaws drop. You seal the deal with light joke number 1. If only my machine could also remove Monday mornings. They laugh, sign the contract, and hand you a slice of Jell-O salad that wobbles like uncertain diplomacy. Evening finds you at a neighbor's Tupperware party. Women snap lids with satisfying burps, while a hostess touts their space-age plastic. Weird fact number 1, she swears these bulls survived a backyard atomic test her brother staged with firecrackers and canned chili. You think of London's Great Fire and hope the insurance premiums are paid. You buy a mint green set anyway, perfect for storing mint nettle tea leaves. Suburbia's sparkle dims in 1957 when a beep from space drifts through transistor radio's Sputnik. Kids stare skyward, hunting a silver basketball with whiskers. Parents mutter about backyard bomb shelters. Your sales pitch pivots. This vacuum's steel casing doubles as fallout shielding, like joke number 2 delivered half serious. Orders spike. McCarthy's hearings flicker on black and white screens. Neighbors eye each other over picket fences. You, older than every ideology combined, master the art of neutral small-talk weather baseball recipes for crocodile sunscreen meatloaf nobody bites. At night, you jot in your journal, plague terror, traded for red scare, same panic, new paint. October 1962 tightens throats like 2 short neckties. Newsboys shout about Soviet missiles in Cuba. Civil defense sirens wail. Your commission check buys cinder blocks and canned peaches. Beneath your bungalow, you build a fallout shelter, lining the walls with encyclopedias pilfered from forgotten salons. Knowledge might not block gamma rays, but it makes fine moral ballast. As you stack Volume H hedgehog illustrations peek out a prickly reminder that fear repeats its wardrobe. For 13 days, the world balances on the edge of a matchstick. You host shelter drills, neighbors cram beside your vacuum display, gnawing on ration crackers and nervously praising your organizational skills. Someone asks your age. You blame good moisturizer again, though down here the air smells like canned peaches and ancient Enlightenment dust, not lavender. When the Khrushchev-Kennedy stare-down finally blinks, everyone surfaces, squinting like miners. They hug host block parties and trade mushroom cloud recipes for atomic eclairs. Historians still debate whether the crisis turned more hearts toward peace or merely toward better bunker blueprints, but you watch suburbs exhale and decide both answers fit. You, however, have inhaled enough fallout paranoia to last centuries. So in 1965, you trade the vacuum for a beat-up Volkswagen microbus painted sunflower yellow. You hitch west following Route 66 engine, coughing folk songs and kerosene fumes. Your traveling companions, a guitar-strumming draft dodger named Eddie, a poet named Starshine, who collects quartz crystals and a dented percolator that still brews the best roadside coffee east of the Rockies. California greets you with eucalyptus haze and freeway ribbons. You crash on a Haight-Ashbury floor where incense battles unwashed socks. Days blur into sit-ins, love-ins, and peppermint oil peace chants. You teach communal kitchens the wonders of mint nettle tea, rebranded herbal cosmic cleanser, and recall that medieval garlic vinegar tonic now reborn as DIY kombucha. Light joke number 3. You tell Starshine it once got you tried for witchcraft. She gasps, groovy. Legitimate historical event arrives August 1969 Woodstock. You hitchhike to upstate New York, ankle deep in mud that reminds you of Canterbury Pilgrim roads, but pulsing with electric guitars instead of lutes. Rain falls. 500,000 bodies sway like a single tie-dyed sea. You brew coffee over sterno for soaked strangers, recalling that Duke Ellington night, different rhythm, same human thrum. When Jimi Hendrix bends the national anthem into feedback sunrise, you feel centuries ring inside each distorted note. Post-Woodstock euphoria fades into televised jungle firefights. Eddie receives a draft notice. Fear paints his eyes the color of trench gas memories you'd hope to forget. You help him file as a conscientious objector, quoting Newton on equal and opposite reactions. The board looks unconvinced, but paperwork misfiles mysteriously overnight, clerical miracle courtesy of your speed-learned typewriter skills. Back home, suburbs rebrand safe. Again, microwave ovens join the kitchen army, and your Tupperware burps contentedly beside them. Yet nuclear specters linger. In 1971, you attend a town hall duck and cover refresher. A civil defense instructor clicks through slides featuring mannequins posed in doomed mock neighborhoods, familiar faces from 1950s bomb tests. You whisper to the woman beside you that the mannequins once wore couture chosen by seers, hoping style might survive, or flesh would not. She shivers. You pass her a hedgehog-stitched handkerchief. Your fallout shelter becomes a neighborhood relic. Kids dare each other to peek inside. You convert it to a reading den stocked with moon landing newspapers. July 1969, you watched Armstrong plant that flag while sipping instant coffee, marveling that your lifetime now stretched earth to moon. On weekends, you invite neighbors to story nights, plague bells, printing presses, great fires, jazz trumpets with jokes lightly salted between tragedies. They call you the timeline bard, unaware how literal the title is. One crisp October evening of 1973, as the Yom Kippur War rattles, distant deserts and oil lines snake toward gas pumps, you lock the bunker hatch and climb the yard ladder. Stars glitter like cold lanterns. You note Halley's Comet is due in a dozen years' time's steady metronome. You exhale, tasting autumn leaves and faint plastic off-gassing. Progress has a bouquet. You think of Alfie's orchard blooming away from smokestacks of Leonardo's paint, cracking yet still radiant of plague bells, swapped for school bells, and realize survival isn't just endurance, it's editing. History revises trims, sometimes repeats jokes. Your job has always been the footnote in the margin. See also the part where humans kept dancing. A neighbor's porch radio drifts soft rock over picket fences. Wind carries the tune like a lullaby. You bow slightly to the hedgehog constellation. You swear hides between Ursa Major's paws, then head inside. Tomorrow's checklist: donate extra canned peaches, tune up the microbus, and maybe start outlining a memoir, though you'll file it under fiction, of course. The 1980s glow neon and hum like a beehive stuck inside a boombox. You trade your sunflower microbus for a rust-red Volkswagen Golf with a cassette deck that eats mixtapes but still sings Journey when you jiggle the dial. Somewhere in Silicon Valley, garages filled with solder fumes are whispering about home computers. You pick up a beige Macintosh 128K at a yard sale. The seller says he bought it last week, but it's already obsolete. Light joke, you reassure him that coming from 1215, you've seen worse lag times. At night, you dial into a bulletin board system, the modem shrieking like a plague bell, put through a kazoo. Handles flash. Knight Rider 88. Star Baby Hedgehog. Sleeve. Your quiet homage. You type advice about medieval bread recipes. Users respond with ASCII, smileys, and disbelief. A private message pings. Dude, your historical trivia is too detailed. Are you actually a time traveler? You chuckle, sip instant coffee, and contemplate how close they are to the truth. 9 November nights later, 1989. You're visiting Berlin, eyeing the wall's graffiti scars. Crowds gather, candles flicker, and suddenly pickaxes chip concrete like eager woodpeckers. The barrier that made maps wince for decades crumbles beneath bare hands and Beethoven blasting from boomboxes. You pocket a pebble, chalk dust your palms, and whisper to a Berliner that even walls made of fear fall eventually. Legitimate historical event checked. Back stateside 93 GIFs. The web browser, you wander through pixelated pages that load slower than Canterbury Pilgrims, but each GIF feels like a cathedral window. In Cambridge, the first webcam shows a coffee pot. Weird fact number 1, thousands of strangers watch water drip through grounds, proof that humanity will binge anything that simmers. You post a hedgehog emoji and feel history wink. The turn of the millennium looms Y2K bug, gnawing at headlines. Friends hoard bottled water. You recall Londoners stuffing wells with garlic during plague season. On 31st December 1999, you sit by an Indiana cornfield radio tower laptop, balanced on your lap mint nettle tea, steaming in a neon Tupperware mug. Midnight clicks. Nothing crashes except fireworks. You jot in your notebook, apocalypse postponed again. 2004 social network profiles bloom like dandelions in spring. You upload a selfie, same wrinkle-free face as a joke. Comments flood. What filter is that? Vampire LOL light joke number 2, you reply, SPF 700. The post goes viral. Conspiracy subreddits dissect your birth certificate, which does not exist. You delete the account, but screenshots haunt message boards. Immortal guy exposed. You moved to Tokyo in 2006, drawn by convenience store coffee that rivals Parisian roasts. Capsule hotels fascinate you, sleep pods stacked like Gutenberg's type trays. Late one night, a coworker introduces you to Nico Duga live streams, where insomniacs watch strangers do absolutely nothing. People donate just to see someone asleep, she explains. You recall medieval vigils over relics and note that voyeuristic calm simply upgraded its bandwidth. Smartphones arrive rectangles of glass that swallow time. You buy the first iPhone in 2007, marveling that Leonardo's notebooks now fit in your palm. A push notification buzzes someone uploaded your old vacuum sales demo to YouTube, claiming AI de-aged footage. Comments again debate your existence. To stay ahead, you start a small channel, boring history for sleep. You narrate plague anecdotes in soft ASMR tones, camera fixed on a crackling fireplace. Viewers, balloon-tired grad students, anxious accountants, nostalgic night owls. They never see your face. They only hear the voice tempered by 800 winters. Face reveal chat bags. You post a gloved hand raising a hedgehog plush. Subscribers skyrocket. Merch requests pour in. Light joke number 3. You design mugs that read crocodile SPF since 1348. They sell out before dawn. 2010 live stream culture explodes. A platform called Twitch invites creators to broadcast themselves sleeping. Fans tip to hear gentle snores. You test the trend camera pointed at a candle microphone, catching the hiss of mint nettle tea brewing. Donations tick upward, someone comments. The slumber stream feels medieval. You grin off camera thinking, if only you knew how medieval. Academic conferences swarm the web. Some panels titled Digital Immortality, Memes Myth, and The Man Who Never Ages. You lurk webcam off. One presenter claims you're an ARG alternate reality game. Another swears deepfakes started in the 15th century with Leonardo's mirror writing. Historians still debate whether the internet spreads truth faster than rumor, but rumor drafted the blueprints. By 2016, augmented reality apps paint Pokemon on cobblestones once spattered with plague sores. You guide tourists through London's rebuilt lanes, phone screens bouncing at Pudding Lane, where the Great Fire sparked teenagers capture a Charizard. You tell them the bakery once sold the best cinnamon buns before incinerating the city. They laugh, toss you digital berries, and sprint off. You whisper thanks to a street catnap sprawled on a windowsill, ancestor of your demon-eyed pudding, perhaps. 2020 arrives heavy with a new pandemic. Empty shelves, chalked sidewalk hearts, masks hiding smiles. The deja vu stings. You stream nightly lullabies about surviving fear. Remember garlic bundles, chamber pot dodges, and laughter in plague tents. Chat blossoms with thousands of sleepy avatars. Your subscriber counter pops confetti. Money rolls in unasked. You donate it to vaccine research, sign the receipt with a hedgehog doodle. Lockdowns, birth trends, sourdough starters, balcony concerts, Zoom fatigue. You demonstrate medieval bread on camera, cracking jokes about Winchester mud as leavening. Comments spam heart emojis. One user types, "Are you actually 800 years old?" You answer with a wink emoji and the line, "Good moisturizer." Vaccines pierce arms. Cafes refill. You sit outside a Brooklyn espresso bar, same diner block, where black and white TVs once danced, watching masked commuters scroll feeds. Your phone buzzes an email from a Hollywood producer pitching a series titled The Man Who Never Ages. You consider replying, then remember Jeffrey's Donkey Leonardo's, Fresco, Pepys's Parmesan, Newton's Apple. Stories thrive on mysteries, and every mystery deserves its curtain. So you pocket the phone sip espresso bold, citrus noted, no crocodile aftertaste, and watch pigeons flock like low-tech drones. Somewhere overhead, satellites ping data at the speed of light. Somewhere within your pulse keeps Asheville drumming the same relaxed tempo it learned under a thatched Winchester roof. The sun dips gilding glass towers. Reflections stretch merge, repeat a recursive hall of mirrors, just like the internet's echo chamber. You rise valise in hand, its leather creased by centuries. Tonight you'll stream another bedtime story, maybe the one about fleas and fortune, maybe about hedgehog embroidery's secret code, and thousands will drift to sleep, believing, disbelieving, or half-believing. All you ask is that they find a comfortable place to lie down, turn on a small fan, and breathe, because whether it's plague carts rattling or comment alerts pinging the world is loud, and rest has always been the quiet rebellion you champion. You shoulder the valise step onto a crosswalk lit by LED halos and melt into the pulse of a city convinced it invented nighttime. Somewhere, Halley's Comet loops back toward the sun. In a few decades, you'll stand on another bridge and greet that familiar bright wanderer. Until then, there are more jokes to tell, more fears to soothe, and countless screens waiting for a voice that never trembles with age, even if it sometimes quivers with tenderness. City lights glitter beneath you like spilled pixels as the elevator whisks you to the top of a Manhattan co-working tower, May 2025. The doors part with a sigh that smells faintly of ozone and burnt espresso pods' office bouquet of the age. You stride past glass cubes where night owl programmers hum at keyboards, training chatbots that practice punchlines on houseplants. A neon sign insists machine learning never sleeps. You smile, neither apparently do you. You settle in a soundproof booth, prop your mic, and cue tonight's ASMR upload the script you've been narrating inside your head for centuries. Red on-air light blinks. You begin voice soft as candle smoke. Have you ever wondered how you would survive if you went back to the Middle Ages and lived right up to this very moment, but never aged? Thousands tune in from dark bedrooms, rain-tracked buses, Antarctic research huts. Comments flutter, hedgehog emojis, croc sunscreen jokes, requests for flea lullabies, and you feel the same warm whoosh Dante felt finishing his Paradiso, minus the Inferno commute. Between takes, you scroll headlines. Reusable rockets landing themselves, lab-grown salmon, sashimi volcanologists, live streaming eruptions to classroom VR helmets. Legitimate historical event just last month, humanity splashed a spacecraft into the Pacific after scooping asteroid gravel proof that rocks are now frequent flyer miles. Not to be outdone, climate scientists record in April as the hottest in 125,000 years. Subways smell like warm aquarium. You jot a note for tonight's story, how to keep mint nettle tea from boiling at street level, light joke number 1. Break room fridge drones like an elderly plague doctor. You sling it open and fish out canned cold brew labeled quantum roast. Tiny print claims the beans were optimized by a supercomputer seeking maximum mouthfeel. Weird fact number 1, someone recently patented AI-generated pizza toppings, ketchup foam, and marshmallow anchovies. You taste the coffee. It's fine, but your 17th century battlefield brew still wins on heart notes and nostalgia. Back at the booth, a push alert pulses. Breaking news, researchers may have revived 46,000-year-old permafrost worms. You almost spit coffee. Great, you mutter medieval parasites with Wi-Fi next. Light joke number 2 sails into the next recording segment. Listeners type, ehu, followed by heart emojis. Disgust is adorable when whispered. Midway through the stream, you trigger an ambient thunder loop. Outside, real drizzle taps the windows, sinking like nature's Foley artist. You recall Winchester rain, London fire rain of molten lead, Woodstock downpour, Y2K fireworks mist. All different temperatures of the same water. You whisper to your audience, hydrate little time travelers, and sense a million sips happen in unison. Another headline rolls a deepfake celebrity apology fools half a nation before breakfast. You remember your accidental Mainz biography and sigh at least woodcuts never changed your voice. Historians still debate whether future scholars will sort truth from algorithmic gossip you tell chat. Some respond with shrug gifs. Others quote your own motto, good moisturizer, and good metadata. 3 a.m. yawns across the city like a slow freight horn. You pop out for air on the rooftop terrace, hoodie pulled against the breeze, carrying whiffs of hot dog carts and distant river. Skyscraper glass throws lunar shards onto asphalt rivers below. Drone taxis buzz silent purring firefly chandeliers. You plant yourself by a smart garden planter to check on Newton breed apples grown here with LED suns. Tiny fruits gleam crimson. You pluck one bite, taste, centuries of crisp rebellion. Light joke number 3 goes out to chat. Finally ate the evidence. Take that gravity. Below Times Square, LED canyons pulse with ads for sleep tracking rings, technologies promising what lullabies once did. You've become their competitor, selling nothing but story-shaped hush. Funny. You lean on the parapet, feeling the city's heartbeat through steel bones, and for a fluttering second, you're ankle-deep in 13th century mud, again roosters screaming dawn into your skull. A tear slips salt of 700 goodbyes, but night wind dries it before it falls. You whisper into the dark. Thank you for lasting with me. Whether you mean the planet, the audience, or yourself, doesn't matter. Traffic's hush and rooftop fans answer like distant surf. Somewhere, Halley's Comet is inbound. Calculus still works. Humanity, for all its recursive mess, just mailed itself a parcel of asteroid dust labeled Hope Fragile. You vow to stick around, at least until someone figures out what to cook with it. Inside, you wrap the final segment. Now find a comfortable place to lie down, turn on a small fan. Relax and let's drift into tomorrow together. Stream ends, chat fades to afterglow. You pack the mic, tuck an apple in your coat, and descend 39 silent floors to dawn gray streets. Sunrise bleeds tangerine across the East River, warming glass towers, pigeons, and your forever young cheeks. Baristas open shop doors, cinnamon rolls inhale courage. You bite the apple, strolling towards a day none have lived yet, pockets jangling with USB drives and scallop shells still clinking after 8 centuries. One more callback just for you. Slow your breathing, friend. Picture the candlelit village where our journey began, straw underfoot, a rooster scolding dawn. Let the scene blur, absorbing the soft hiss of parchment turning. Now the frame widens, plague bells, pilgrim roads, Florence, masquerades, London, flames, apple seeds, and soot-cleared orchards. Feel each memory wash over you like warm tide, then drift away. In the distance, spinning mules hush, jazz horns fade, vacuum pitches dim. Steam gives way to circuitry, yet every era hums the same lullaby of heartbeat and hope. Remember the hedgehog sleeves that stitched secret affection, the crocodile sunscreen joke that outlived witch trials, the mint nettle tea brewed for soldiers, students, and sleepy livestream audiences alike. Threads woven through centuries now twine gently around your pulse. Breathe in midnight rain, tapping neon glass. Breathe out cathedral incense swirling above cracked frescoes. Notice how it all settles into a single, steady rhythm, the quiet space between past and future, where rest waits. Your body sinks deeper, muscles loosening like old book bindings. Outside your window, traffic softens to a far-off seaside hush. Imagine Halley's Comet sweeping its silver arc overhead, loyal timekeeper, promising that even the sky remembers to return slow, luminous, and sure. Let your final waking thoughts drift like paper cranes on the Seine, carrying away worries of deadlines, headlines, or ancient fleas with modern Wi-Fi. There's only this gentle darkness, warm as candlelight, cool as orchard shadows. You are safe, you are timeless, and you are allowed to sleep. Good night.